Mark your card. Proudly sponsored by Timeform.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cheltenham ahead of day 2 of the festival. As you can see, it's a rather overcast morning here at Presby Park. And I'm afraid the news this morning is somewhat in keeping with the weather. The Glenfarclas cross-country chase has been abandoned following a course inspection this morning, and it will not be rerun later in the week. And following a series of disappointing runs from his horses yesterday, Nicky Henderson has taken out 3 of his 6 intended runners on the day 2 programme, and I'm afraid they do include the Betway Champion Chase candidate John Bunn. Does that pave the way for Willie Mullins, following his brilliant opening day treble, to maintain his stranglehold with the red-hot favourite, El Fabiolo?
El Fabiolo over the last in style. El Fabiolo staying on powerfully. John Bunn isn't getting any closer, and in the match-up between the two, it's El Fabiolo who wins the arc.
Very happy with his progress, very happy with what he did in Leopardstown. He'll run a big race.
A big race indeed. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Cheltenham, and a great shame we won't be seeing the cross-country chase, and a great shame, of course, we won't be seeing John Bunn a little bit later on. It was billed, the Champion Chase this year, as though the top 2 from the Arkle last year taking each other on. Unfortunately, as you've heard from Gary before and just from there, it now looks something of a penalty kick for El Fabiolo to give Willie Mullins a 3rd successive win in the Queen Mother Champion Chase, having taken the last 2 renewals with Energumen in 22 and 23. Soft ground, by and large, the going as it stands. We'll be catching up, hopefully, with John Pullen quite soon. And while earlier on of the last 10 renewals, the likes of when Sprinter Sacre was winning the Champion Chase on good ground, we've come to expect something of moisture on this day. 5 of the last 10 renewals have been run on soft ground. And with Edwardstone likely to go off in front and El Fabiolo seemingly having no problem with conditions, it is pretty much set fair for him to have his day in the sun and a championship race in the bargain. And it looks pretty set fair that Willie Mullins is going to once again have a great day. A fine treble. It could have been even more with a couple of placings on day 1. He's got 3 short price favourites in Ballyburn, Factor File and El Fabiolo himself. He's got 9 out of the 23 in the Champion Bumper. Sam Majest seemingly have a really good chance in the Coral Cup. So it would be no surprise to see Willie Mullins tick closer or even achieve his 100th winner at the Cheltenham Festival on day 2 of this year's meeting. With that in mind, let's head back to our Pres position, rejoin Gary O'Brien, who's now been joined by Martin Dixon and Lisa O'Neill.
I have indeed, Angie. Thank you very much, and it's a warm welcome to Lisa and to Martin. Guys, I suppose we probably have to start with the news on Nicky Henderson's runners, Martin. It might not be the greatest shock, but how much of a blow is that to the day as a whole, do you think?
It is a big blow, isn't it? And, you know, when you've got one of the powerhouse stables in Britain not being able to bring their horses to the meeting, it creates a big hole in the meeting, doesn't it, unfortunately? You know, we're all looking forward to seeing El Fabiolo taking on John Bunn again. Unfortunately, that won't happen. It would have added more depth to the Champion Chase without question. And it is disappointing, but ultimately, I think he's had to make that decision. The way that the horses were performing yesterday is obviously not happy with them. There are other meetings in a few weeks' time, Aintree, maybe Punchestown, where hopefully we might be able to see those horses, those big names, at their best. And maybe if they'd have run at this meeting, that wouldn't have been the case if they're having hard races unnecessarily and not performing. So, you know, hopefully the upshot of them not being here is that we do see them back to their best in the next couple of months.
And Lisa, you're a big part of the Gordon Elliott team. I know you've been out on the ground this morning. How much frustration is there that the cross country is not going to be run here this week? A lot of horses pretty much had their whole seasons geared around that race, haven't they?
Yeah, a lot of frustration, Gary. Obviously, look, we had a downpour of rain yesterday morning as well, and they decided to have an inspection this morning at 8 o'clock, and they feel like the ground and the forecast for the few days ahead isn't sufficient enough for the ground to dry up in time. It's obviously very frustrating for connections and horses that have travelled over as well, that have their whole season campaigned and geared around this cross-country race. And there's plenty of frustrated jockeys out there too that were looking forward to obviously having a good spin around the cross-country race. And I think the cross-country just brings a different element to the Cheltenham Festival, and it's very disappointing. Personally, I think it's a little bit premature, because I know the forecast has showers and a little bit of rain to come, but potentially maybe it could have dried up by Friday. We all were here on Wednesday a couple of years ago when there was a massive downpour that nobody predicted, and sometimes the weather is a little bit unpredictable. So it's disappointing for a lot of connections that are involved in the cross country.
Hopefully we're still going to have a great day of action, but the programme has been rejigged, and we're now going to be getting underway at 1:45 just to try and reduce the gaps in between races and even things out a little bit. Just before we concentrate on day 2 though, guys, you were both here yesterday. Lisa, how much did you enjoy the action? Willie Mullins, obviously, surprise, centre stage once again.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. Look, this place is phenomenal. It's the theatre of dreams, and everyone comes here with massive reputations and expectations, and look, some bubbles can be burst, but I was really taken by Gaelic Warrior yesterday. I have to say, Paul Townend riding with so much confidence, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant on Gaelic Warrior. A horse that we've seen that's plenty quirky in the past, and obviously had to put behind a disappointing run in Leopardstown, and I just thought Paul just rode him absolutely fantastically. He was never in a panic to get to the front, got a lead down over the last, and my God, he's some engine.
Yeah, Ruby Walsh was the king of Presby Park in his riding career, Martin, but Paul Townend, he's just Mr. Reliable, isn't he? He is the man for the big occasion.
Absolutely, and I echo all of those thoughts on the ride yesterday for Gaelic Warrior. I think it really helped him, didn't it, getting in a bigger field, having a bit of pace to aim at, something to tuck him behind and chase through the race, and it kept him straight pretty much through the race, and he was able to show his class. It was a good performance from him. I thought he was good on Stateman as well, but Stateman's just the consummate pro, isn't he? And he was workmanlike in getting it done, but he had every angle covered at every stage of the race.
Yeah, there were plenty of good performances out with the Mullins trio, and the horse in the last, Martin, absolutely hosed up Corbett's Cross. Did we see a Gold Cup horse of next year?
I think we might have done, yeah. I definitely think so. I mean, he's got a big strike rate, hasn't he? He was obviously a little bit quirky as a younger horse when he ran out here at last year's meeting, but that was probably just inexperience and immaturity to some extent, and yesterday you couldn't fault him. Really impressed with how he finished off his race. There was a bit of depth to that race as well, you know, there were good horses in behind. They went a solid gallop. He proved his stamina. I'd say he would be a strong Gold Cup candidate for next year, yeah.
And Lisa, the Elliott horses were thereabouts all day. Plenty of them ran well in the field. Thought found a 50 in particular on a super race in the Arkle. No winner, but was there plenty of satisfaction with the way they acquitted themselves?
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. Plenty of them hitting the crossbar, and I thought Irish Point, in fairness to him, he potentially was going for the stayers at one stage, dropping back to the 2-mile trip, and look, he gave Stateman a race of it. He jumped the last upsides, and he was only beaten a length at the post, so I thought he ran a massive race, and obviously Firefox found a 50, and look, plenty of chances in the week ahead and today as well, so fingers crossed to get that winner on the board. But it was impressive that with Henry and Slade Steele and Rachel in the first yesterday, and I can imagine they were delighted to get that on the scoreboard.
No doubt. We'll be taking a closer look obviously at all the big race action today in due course. Just to reference though, Lisa, maybe some of the better chances for the Elliott Yard today. Is the bumper race you feel you got a strong hand in?
Yes, absolutely. Look, there's 3 horses that if you were coming here with just one of them, you'd be delighted to be taking your chance. They all have a really, really reasonable and decent chance in it. Personally, I found it hard to maybe separate a few of them. Obviously, Jalan Dadaris, I think he's been really impressive at what he's done so far, and I think this place will really suit him. He's got a really good mental attitude. He's very, very relaxed. I think he's potentially going to be a stayer in the making, but stayers do win the bumper. Romeo Coolio, he's obviously lovely. We'll talk about him later on. He's a horse that can be a little bit mentally fragile, and I'll be really interested to see how he takes preliminaries. And the Yellow Clay obviously as well. very impressive performance the last day. I think he stepped forward from that too, so he could really outrun his odds.
And Willie Mullins looks to have a great chance, Martin, of achieving that memorable 100-winner milestone here at Cheltenham today. Do you think it could be with El Fabiolo, or perhaps might it not be straightforward for the likes of Ballyburn and Factify like the market is suggesting?
Well, I think Ballyburn's going to be tremendously hard to beat. Obviously, he's priced up accordingly, and same goes with El Fabiolo. I think he would have been very hard to beat even with John Bon in the race. Obviously, it's thinned out a little bit now, but the fact that Edward Stone is likely to be ridden in that positive, quite aggressive manner, I think it'll only help El Fabiolo really, and it might help him to be even more impressive than he would be in a more tactical race, I suppose. So I think we could see a really smart performance from those two. Factify would be the one of the short prices that I think would be a bit more vulnerable. He hasn't yet proven his stamina. It is going to be a real stamina test of a race. I think the cheap pieces going on Stay Away Fair will mean that he's going to be positively ridden, and they'll want the race to become a bit more of a war of attrition, and that could find Factify out potentially. And I also just think he's got deeper opposition than, say, a Ballyburn has in the novice hurdle. Stay Away Fair's already finished third in the Cotswold Chase, and he was a Grade 1 novice hurdle winner at this meeting last season, so he was up there sort of competing against those big gun Irish horses and stables last year, and he was able to do it and do it successfully. So he's got a big chance. I think Monty's Star's a danger as well. Really impressed with his jumping. He's just a sort of embryonic staying chaser, isn't he? And he's started to put everything together this season.
Lovely. Okay, so just the 6 races for us then here on day 2 of the festival. The ground on the main track has dried out a little bit, as you might expect. Going to be interesting to see how that rides, whether it might be a little bit tacky or not. We'll be back with you in due course, as I say, going to get stuck into some of our top action here on the Wednesday at Cheltenham. But now I think we're going to say a very good morning to Angus.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Racing TV studios once again for day 2 of the Cheltenham Festival. I hope you enjoyed all of the action with us yesterday, and today I think we are set fair for a really good day's racing, but it will be without John Bon. That is the breaking news this morning. John Bon gone. He's not taking part in the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase, unfortunately. Nicky Henderson disappointed with many of his runners yesterday. Bar Lucia, who was third in the Champion Hurdle. On the back of that, he has decided to pull John Bon and a couple of others as well. And he has stated also that there may be more non-runners to come. Watch this space as far as the Henderson horses are concerned. We are delighted to be covering the Cheltenham Festival for you throughout this week here on Racing TV, representing 20 years of coverage by Racing TV and indeed by the previous incarnation, which was Racing UK. And we're looking forward to taking you through the rest of today and the rest of the week. As far as today is concerned, here is the card with amended times on the right-hand side of your screen. They're going soft, heavy in places. 1:30 start with the Gallagher Novices Hurdle Ballyburn long odds on. Of course, he's beaten Slade Steele on his last couple of starts. Slade Steele winning the Supreme yesterday. Brown Advisory then at 2:30. That's a Grade 1 over 3 miles and half a furlong at 2:10. Coral Cup 3:15. That's 2 miles 5 furlongs. 4 o'clock. The Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase, 2 miles. No cross-country chase, as Gary was telling you. Then we move on to the Johnny Henderson Grand Annual. That's at 4:50 now. And the Weatherby's Champion Bumper. Willie Mullins with all of those runners Lisa was telling us about. 5:30 today. So those are the amended times right inside your screen. 1:45 through to 5:30. So we've spoken about the Nicky Henderson non-runners. Let's confirm all of those that don't go today. There's quite a few in the 250. 2 Maxim, 5 First Street, one of Nicky's. 23 Supreme Gift and 25 Zanderbad. Then the big one, 3:38, no John Bon, he's gone. 4:51, Dancing on My Own, and 5:35, Celtic Dino. 6 Farland, 10 Kingston Pride. That's another Nicky Henderson horse. There may be more. We will keep you posted. There is one jockey change as well. Rachel Batmore picks up a spare ride, and that's number 14, the Folks Tiara. Rachel on that one in the 450. So those are all your details for the action today on Racing TV. We've got everything covered for you, and we'll have a look at the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase in a moment. This is how they bet for the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase at the moment. And El Fabiola's 1-3 now. Of course, in the absence of John Bond, this market has changed. Edwardstone 6-1, Captain Guinness 15-2. Gentleman to Me is 22-1. It's 25's Elixir de Nuts. Boot Hill is 66-1, and Funambula Sivola is 100-1. John Bond, the very important non-runner, 7 go in the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase. Now, throughout the week, we're going to be looking at race IQ data. We explained what it can bring to the party yesterday, and we had a look at it in terms of the Sky Bet Supreme. Let's use the data now to have a look at the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase and start with El Fabiolo. He's an interesting horse. He's unbeaten over fences, of course, taking the Arkle last year. But in terms of the data, he doesn't gain a lot of lengths at his fences, but he's very quick. He's got a pretty good engine. Let's have a look at him in action. This is his last start at Leopardstown. Now let's have a look at this. Third fence, he's in second there. Skews in the air and he gets in close as well. What does the race IQ data tell us about that? Well, it tells us that he lost a lot of speed. That's what he does at quite a few of his fences. He lost 7.48 miles an hour. Now that's quite a lot. You'd expect horses running in 2-mile chases obviously to lose a little bit of speed as they jump, and he would be about 3 miles an hour, 3 to 4 miles an hour you'd expect. That's a lot to lose. Let's move him on, let's roll him on and have a look at the next fence. He also loses quite a lot of speed at this one. He's in second, highlighted there, the halo of truth, and he leaves his hind legs in the fence there and he loses speed again. He loses nearly 7 miles an hour. So what I'm saying is that he can make mistakes at his fences, but he's got such a good engine, it doesn't stop him. He can get back up to speed fairly quickly, but he will lose speed at some fences. Let's have a look at the next one. These 3 were his worst jumps in this race. 3 on the bounce. Here we go again. There again. Back end, left in a little bit. And once again, he loses a bit of speed, and quite a lot, 6.76 miles per hour. Now, he does overall in his races gain lengths in the air, but he loses a little bit of speed, but he's got such a good engine, it doesn't stop him from winning races. Let's roll him on, take him to the finish. We'll pick him up back in the home straight. They missed out the last, as you'll remember, and now he's doing what El Fabiolo does, which is show lots of speed. He's got a huge engine, and he runs out a ready winner, and he's a long odds-on shot today, and he deserves to be so. But what that data tells us is that he's not perfect at his jumps. He can lose speed at some of his fences. He does recover quickly, but he can lose speed. Overall, 3.82 lengths he managed to gain in that Ladbrokes Dublin Chase. Dino Blue in second gained 2.64. Look at Gentleman to Me. He jumped best in the race, 6.53. So, El Fabiolo, he can get over his fences okay. He can gain a few lengths at his fences, but he can lose speed as well. And he just has to pick his speed up again when he gets out of that jumping envelope. I'm not saying that it's going to stop him from winning today. I'm saying it's something to keep an eye on because the data suggests he's just not perfect at his fences. Now let's have a look at Edwardstone. He's an interesting case in point. He's not been a brilliant jumper throughout his career, but he was very good at Newbury last time, where they changed the tactics on him and they allowed him to bowl along in front in the game spirit. And look at this graphic and look exactly what he achieved. You've got the jumps on the bottom axis, the side axis, his lengths gained. So look at this, at every single fence, he's the top line, he's gaining ground at every single one of those fences compared to his rivals. He's jumping absolutely brilliantly. You see naught in the middle of the lengths gain jumping access. Well, that's where they're just jumping okay and efficiently, an even jump if you like, but then gaining when he goes above naught, dropping below, they're losing lengths at their fences, and he gained at every single one, seemingly allowing him to bowl along in front and use his speed meant that he was better at his fences than he had been previously. Let's put that in context with his previous runs. In some of those, he's been nowhere near as good. Here, he's gaining just over 15 lengths. 15 lengths he gained with his jumping because he was allowed to bowl along. So I put it to you, given this data, he may just get El Fabiolo on the stretch. And if El Fabiolo makes a couple of little errors where he loses speed like he did in those 3 fences that I showed you last time out, Edwardstone out in front, bowling along, jumping as well as that, he may just give El Fabiolo something to think about. Interesting stuff from the Race IQ data. I'm sure it'll make you think a bit about taking 1 to 3. He should win, but can Edwardstone get him on the stretch and cause him just to lose some speed at his fences? Here's Gary.
Angus, thank you so much. Yes, plenty of food for thought there. And I think, Lisa, that will be the quandary for anybody who maybe not necessarily wants to back El Fabiolo at that price, but maybe put him in a few multiples or something like that today. Is there a worry at the back of your mind about his jumping, or is it a case of just nurse him around today and that'll be enough?
No, I can understand where people will be concerned about his jumping, because as Angus pointed out, that he can be not so fluent at some of his obstacles, but for me, he's so powerful, he's so strong, he doesn't lose any momentum, Gary. He made a bad enough mistake at the last fence in the Arkle. We'll have a look at that in a little while last year, but he just gets away with it, Gary. He's just so strong, he's so powerful. He doesn't, for me, he's got so much of an engine that he doesn't really lose too much, and I wouldn't be worried about that. I think the faster Edwardstone goes, I think El Fabiolo has got that tactical speed and he's got that stamina too.
Yeah, we'll have a look at last year's Arkle, and Lisa has alluded to there, Martin. He's almost like an equine bulldozer, isn't he? Just, if he does make a mistake, it doesn't seem to stop him at all.
No, although Angus was pointing out that it does cost him speed, and he obviously has to regain that. So the dynamic of the race is an interesting one. I think it helps Edwardstone that John Bon isn't in there, because he'd have been pushing him from the outset, I expect. But this is El Fabiolo in last year's Arkle. They went hard ahead of him this day. He was always very much in his comfort zone, and you know, he's a horse that can make mistakes. He has made mistakes. We saw him belt the last there in the Arkle last year, but he very quickly regathers his steam and he's able to forge on. He's still unbeaten over fences. He's never fallen in a jumps race. So, like, yes, he can hit one, but it doesn't really stop him. Well, it hasn't stopped him producing top-class performance after top-class performance to this point. And the latest of those came at the Dublin Racing Festival. Wasn't the original plan, of course. He was due to run at Ascot when that race then had to be called off. He was rerouted to Leopardstown. And Lisa, did you see everything you'd like to see from him this day?
Yeah, I was quite impressed with him, Gary. I've been very impressed with him throughout his whole career, in fairness. And obviously Captain Guinness is in the back of the shot. He was reported to be abnormal after the race, so he was a bit of he comes and reopposes again today, and hopefully he can put up a good performance after being second in this race last year. But for me, El Fabiolo, he's got everything you need, and albeit we can critique his jumping a little bit, some of those good 2-mile chasers can be slightly reckless at times, but he just, for me, he just gets away with it, and he's just got such a big engine. He's got so much talent as well, and I find it hard to try and oppose him, to be honest, Gary. He obviously stays up that hill really well as well, so I think he's another one that's going to be in the bag for the Willie Mullins team. Captain Guinness, and gentleman to me, his stable companion, well in arrears on that occasion, and Dino Blue finished second, of course, going to be favourite for the mares race here on Friday. What about Edwardstone, Martin? We're going to have a look at him finishing second to John Bon earlier on in the season, but the real game changer as far as his chance is concerned today was his win at Newbury last time. Can he get El Fabiolo off it? Well, his jumping will be the key, and if he can jump as well as he did at Newbury, it's all the points Angus was making just there in the studio. If he can jump as well as what he did at Newbury today, then it gives him a chance. It gives him a chance. It's a track that suits front runners. John Bon not being in the race might give him a little bit of a softer time on the front end and enable Tom Cannon to be able to control the race to some extent, like he would want to. This wasn't him at his best, but it was still a good 2-mile performance. I think he bumped into John Bon on obviously one of his top days, and he still ran really well under a hold-up ride. It seemed like the tactics switch did help him at Newbury. You only have to look at the way that he jumped in comparison to some of his other jumping displays, I think, to take note of that point. So it definitely helped, but I do still think
think he'll struggle, to be honest. The betting market tells you that, and I wouldn't necessarily be a punter of El Fabiolo at 3s on, but I do think he'll be very hard to beat.
There are others in there who could potentially mix it with Edwardstone if they did go forward with him once again today, and Elixir de Nuts is one of those. We'll have a look at him lowering the colours of John Bon here on Festival Trials Day. I mean, this race has been spoken about plenty. John Bon ended up having a real grueler after that mistake earlier on, Martin. We're not going to see him today. We are going to see Elixir de Nuts, though. Will he have a role to play?
Look, he's a tough, honest horse, having a really good season. He's not this sort of level, I don't think, is he? I know he's obviously won here, but the race is easy to pick holes in. John Bon would have won without the errors. You can be certain of that. And look, he's a solid high 150s, 160ish horse, Elixir de Nuts. But that's kind of where he's at, and that's probably where he'll run to. It might be good enough to see him in the 3, but if El Fabiolo or Edwardstone even turn up on their best game, then he's not going to be beating them.
Lisa, I know you think the favourite will win, as do I. Is there anything in there that could potentially run well at a price that we haven't spoken about, or is this just a race that might just turn out to be very straightforward?
I think it's a race that's going to turn out to be very straightforward, Gary. Maybe Captain Guinness, at the price he is one that could end up in the placings as well. Obviously, it's to put a bad run behind him, but he put up a really good display against an Ergamine here last year as well. And if he gets back to some of his very best form, he could potentially run a really big race for the team that seems to horses really spark when they come here as well. Rachel Blackmore and Henry de Bromhead. It'd be nice to see him run a solid race, but for me, it's El Fabiolo in the bag.
Martin, final thoughts? Any angle for a punter there?
I think Captain Guinness to maybe finish second to El Fabiolo is an angle. I think he'll be given a more patient, pick up the pieces type of ride, and if Tom Cannon has had to be aggressive on Edwardstone, it could potentially, if El Fabiolo engages with him a fair way out, it could just leave him vulnerable after the second last to getting a bit tired, and maybe Captain Guinness could come and pick up some pieces and get the place money again like he did last year. So I'd fancy him to run very well, but I do think El Fabiolo will be tremendously difficult to beat, and I'm looking forward to seeing him, because for me he's one of the best horses we'll see all week, maybe even the best horse we'll see all week.
Gentleman to me is a free going type as well. Is there potential that he could take on Edwardstone at the front end?
Quite conceivably, yeah. You've got Elixir de Nuts in there. I don't know. It certainly won't be as easy for Edwardstone to dominate today.
And that will help Captain Guinness, won't it, to run well? But I think it'll help El Fabiolo as well.
That's our feature event then on day 2 here at Cheltenham Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase, due off now in the revised schedule at 4 p.m. We'll be back with you shortly. Now that we're going to rejoin Anthony.
Barry Orr from Betfair has joined us out on the track. Nice gentle morning, Barry. Nothing really to do, knocking about.
Yeah, it's been lively enough, it has to be said. Not as lively as 7 Barrows, as we were saying, but plenty going on. Obviously, Siskin's out of the Gold Cup tomorrow. Hasn't really had any effect in the market because we've been non-runner, no bet for quite some time now, with 11 to 10 on Galloping Deschamps. So looks like he's going to go off odds on now on the day.
Within terms of today, just like yesterday, you've got short price favourites to try and take on. I mean, it's looking fairly set fair that Willie Mullins is going to have another great day.
Yeah, well, that treble, like Ballyburn kicking off in the first race, obviously you've got Factifile and El Fabiolo. It's coming in around 2 to 1, and not as much damage that's going to cost as the one yesterday, the 3 big winners that he had. But again, it's what punters want to do. They want to get involved with multiples. Our offer just today and every day during the Cheltenham Festival is a completely free bet on horse racing multiples. And as you can imagine, Andy, a lot of our customers availed of that treble yesterday, that short price treble. It worked out about 5 or 6 to 1 at one stage yesterday. So a whole host of additional place races as well on the Betfair Sportsbook. In the Coral Cup, we're playing 6 places there. And Ballyadam's been well supported for Betfair Ambassador Rachel Blackmore, who added £10,000 yesterday to the Serial Winners Fund with her win in the opener on Slade Steel. That Serial Winners Fund now stands at £195,000. That money goes to benefit injured jockeys in the UK and Ireland. Hopefully it'll get to $250,000 mark come Grand National Day. But fantastic day's racing. The markets are really, really lively, it has to be said. But I suppose that short price treble is kind of the anchor of everyone's bets today.
Looking at yesterday's results, I mean, it seems on the face of it a bad day for bookmakers. Plenty of short prices going in. Could it have been even worse?
It could have been considerably worse if Embassy Gardens had won the last. That would have been a real stinker, because on our configurable multis tabs on our new app and our desktop, that was the last leg of it was Embassy Gardens, and that would have caused a serious amount of pain. So yeah, thank God for small mercies, I suppose.
So go on, you have to be realistic. A couple of these favourites at least are going to win. Which one of the big three would Betfair most like to be beaten today?
Oh, Janie, I tell you, any one of the, like, obviously the first leg would be great to get that beaten, because the boys in the trading room wouldn't have a sweat on. But he seems to be everyone's nap. Obviously, Slade Steele dodged him and went on and won the Supreme. Like, if he had gone to Supreme, Ballyburn, Slade Steele would be running here today in the opener. So he seems to be the Irish nap of the meeting. Ballyburn, he looks about the best novice. I think Factor File is probably the one that, if you're going to get one of the 3B, that could be Factor File. I think he's one that Stay Away Faye has a big chance in there, and there obviously Rachel Blackmore on Monty Star as well is not without a chance. So that's probably the race where competition is stiffest against the short price favourite.
A Coral Cup, a very competitive race, obviously, far more competitive than some of them.
Yeah.
And that's reflected in the prices as well.
Yeah, very much so. Well, at the head of the market, Built by Ballymore is really, really strong. They're backing that like defeats out of the question. He was 6 and 7 to 1 just a couple of days ago. He's into 3 to 1 now. Like I said, 6 places there. Ballyadam, the top way for Rachel Blackmore, a few quid knocking around for that. There's also some money. Obviously, Sam Matgeest was the one that everyone was talking about on the circuit post-Cheltenham or pre-Cheltenham, but he seems to, support for that seems to have dried up a little bit. But Built by Ballymore, the way they're backing it, unbelievable for a race as competitive as the Coral Cup. Or is it competitive? Maybe it's not. It didn't even fill this year.
Well, exactly. Barry, thank you very much. Have a good day, but the old cliche, not too good at that.
Thanks, Anthony.
Barry Orr with an update on the markets there. He'll be back a little bit later on today. I'm going to have a look back now at the last race from yesterday. I think this is a good race that tells us just exactly how accurate and how interesting the race IQ data can be. A lot of races yesterday were very nuanced as far as the data was concerned. For example, Mystical Power might well have won the Supreme if he'd sat a little bit closer to the pace. It was quite a steadily run Supreme. He was a bit further back than Slade Steele. He ran a faster final 4 furlongs than Slade Steele, but was outstayed in the closing stages because he used up his energy to get there. This is a much more stark piece of race IQ data concerning Corbett's Cross and Embassy Gardens. You remember Corbett's Cross was really impressive in landing the last. We'll take it to 2 out. Now, you remember Embassy Gardens, left-hand side of your screen, makes a mistake, quite a tired mistake. What did that mean as far as the data was concerned? Well, it meant that he actually lost 6 miles an hour at that fence and took a while to get going again, whereas Corbett's Cross jumped it pretty well and goes on to jump the last well too. Let's go and have a look at the last 8.5 lengths he gained jumping those final 2 fences, Corbett's Cross. That's a big gain. A big gain for jumping over 2 fences. Over 4 lengths he gained at each fence. So what I'm saying is, yes, Embassy Gardens lost a lot of speed jumping that second last, and it didn't help him. But Corbett's Cross was so good at those last 2. I don't think what happened to Embassy Gardens made a significant difference. And if you look at the sectionals for this race, it's very interesting. He was over 4 seconds quicker in the final 4 furlongs, Corbett's Cross. And the last furlong, I'll give you the comparison of their last furlongs. Corbett's came home in 15.52. Okay, 18.18 for Embassy Gardens. He was absolutely legless on the run-in. Yes, that mistake didn't help. He lost 6 miles an hour. It was a race-ending mistake for him, but even if he jumped it well, I think the data is telling us that he wouldn't have got anywhere near the impressive Corbett's Cross in the final race at Cheltenham yesterday. Good example of how the data can tell us exactly what happened out there on the track. Let's go back to the track, though, and join Anthony now.
Clerk of the course, John Pullen, joins me out here on the track. How's your evening into the morning been?
Well, like every race day morning, sense of anticipation, but obviously, clearly, we were concerned about the cross-country course, and you know, despite being dry through the night and a dry forecast today, you know, on looking at that this morning, it just isn't safe to race on.
Where exactly were you concerned about? Was it bends mainly?
To be honest, the whole of this top loop in front of the stand, you know, throughout the build-up has been very heavy ground, and there's sort of several areas there that's this morning after that 11 mil yesterday are just faults. walking on it, it moves under your feet, and that's just not safe. So unfortunately, we've had to abandon the race. The team here put a lot of effort into that course. It's a great spectacle and a real shame to lose the race.
Absolutely. 6 great races on offer elsewhere, though. It's second day of the old course. How exactly is it going?
Yeah, so as I say, dry overnight and dry through this morning, and this drying breeze. So we've flipped back to soft, heavy in places, and I think it'll actually be quite testing today. It is drying. It might just be a bit tacky, but we're soft and heavy in places officially.
Just on the anticipated rain that you expected before day 1 leading into day 2, can a clerk of the course have a contingency plan for, say, the plan goes out the window, you get more rain than expected, or is it just a black and white situation?
No, we obviously look at contingencies and take into consideration, if the forecast is wrong, what do we do? And that's very much been the prep for the last 2 weeks and this final 2 weeks. Obviously we have one eye on the festival right from the start of the season in October, and every decision we make is with one eye on the impact it might have for this week. But just these last 2 weeks, it looked more likely to be a soft festival rather than a quicker ground festival. And so we've given that consideration throughout the build-up, and that's sort of come into play today. We've been able to move most of the rails out a couple of yards just to give some fresh ground for today, and that's because we thought about it a couple of weeks ago and thought, if we are in the situation where we've had day 1 on soft ground, we'll need to try and find some. So the rail alignment and hurdle positions have been done according to that. So happy that we're able to give a little bit of fresh ground for today. Any differences between how it goes on the hurdles track to the chase track? No, on the old course, it's pretty consistent across both courses. Obviously we'll switch tomorrow to new. Not been raced on yet, and with a dry day today, I'd anticipate that being in a slightly better position at the start of the day. That said, however, we've got some showers moving in through the day tomorrow. What are you expecting in the lead up to this afternoon and into day 3? Yeah, so today's forecast to be dry, a little bit breezy as it is currently, and that's pretty much the picture for the rest of the day. Dry overnight and into tomorrow morning. And then forecast is for some showers throughout tomorrow. We could be 2 to 4 mil. And it's a similar picture for Friday as well. So we could have another, potentially 4 to 8 mil on the new course. John, thank you very much. You're almost halfway there. Yes, but very much looking forward to today. Thank you. Thanks very much.
John Pullen talking about the ground at Cheltenham. I think it was heavy for the first race there yesterday. The Supreme was the slowest renewal of that race this century, over 5 seconds slower than any other Supreme. So we definitely dealt with heavy ground yesterday. Maybe a little bit better today, possibly quite sticky. We're going to have a look at the first race on the card now, the Gallagher. Yeah, the 2 mile 5 furlong Gallagher novices hurdle gets us underway. It'll be at 1:45 today. That's the rearranged time. 7 runners, Ballyburn odds on 2 to 5, Atlantique 11 to 2, Predators Gold 17 to 2, Handstand is 14, it's 18 to 1, Jinko Blue, Jimmy DeSoy 40s and 40 to 1 Mercury. 7 go to post then with Ballyburn very short for Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. So this race, it really is all about Ballyburn, isn't it? He's been tremendous thus far. They decided to go here rather than the Sky Bet Supreme. It was up in the air for a while, but he was very strong over 2 miles when he won last time up. Really good in beating Slade Steele. In fact, he's beaten that horse twice, and we know what Slade Steele did yesterday in winning the Supreme. So everything looks in place for a big run from Ballyburn. If you wanted to back a 2 to 5 shot, I think probably this is the one that you want. Here's Gary.
In the horse everyone's been talking about in the run-up to this year's Cheltenham Festival, Angus, and in fairness to him, his performances on the track probably warrant it. We've had the which race will he run in conundrum going on for a long time, Martin, but it was settled last week, and now we've seen Slade Steele come out and do what he did yesterday, the horse who gets closest to him here at a respectable distance. Is this an open and shut case?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I thought this was a brilliant performance, and it's got obviously more depth to it now that Slade Steele has come out and done what he did yesterday. It just adds to what he did here at Leopardstown. He's got a rating now of 157. pretty sure that's higher than Vitor and Duvan and horses like that from the Mullins yard that we've seen come here and dominate in recent years. So at this stage, coming into a festival, he's already rated at an immensely high level, and with justification when you consider that the runner-up has won a Supreme Novices. So no, he's a fantastic horse, brilliant pedigree. I haven't seen him in the flesh, you guys will have done, but he looks an impressive horse, and you can't really fault him, can you? I know he was beaten early on in the season, but it was a bit of a messy race. He was starting out his season, and you couldn't hold that against him really in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, he is a lovely horse. At least I love the way he goes about it as well, puts his head down. Some people worry about that type of thing, that they might race a little bit keenly, but I think when it came to deciding what race he'd go for, you just look back to the 2.5 mile maiden win at Leopardstown at Christmas, and he absolutely rocketed through the line that day, didn't he? Oh, he completely dominated the race, and I do agree with you. He carries his head quite low, and I know Paul Townend has said that he looks a lot keener than he actually is in his race, but I think, look, he's bred to have loads of stamina as well, and I love what I've seen him do over 2.5 mile. I think he's got pace, he's got stamina, he's really got it all, to be perfectly honest. And as Martin said, we've seen what Slade Steele came out and done yesterday, and I think it says a lot when horses are fearing lining up against him. Slade Steele obviously decided to go for the Supreme because of where Ballyburn was going to go, but for me he's probably one of the bankers of the week. I actually think I've been really taken by everything he's done so far. He did get defeated on his debut over hurls by Firefox, who finished 3rd in the Supreme, ran a cracker yesterday, but I think he was obviously I think he was really, he probably just wasn't really at that stage of, he probably benefited with that run under his belt. Yeah, I do. I think we were on actually that day, and I think he's just improved and improved with every performance, and I've really taken by what he's done so far. He does seem to tower over his rivals in today's opener, but as per usual in a race of this nature, Willie Mullins got plenty of backup in there. What about Elet Lantique, who we last saw finishing 2nd in the Laurels of Naas novice hurdle in early January? Lisa, he looked all over the winner for much of the race here. We see Firefox there just coming under a ride and eventually backs out of it, but Elet Lantique gets picked off late by reading Tommy wrong here. What was your feeling coming away from this? Yeah, obviously, look, he lost little in defeat, Gary. He did have the run of the race, but he done all the donkey work as well with Paul Townend on board. Reading Tommy wrong was one that was dropped in, probably didn't jump fluent early on in the race, but at this stage I still thought Elet Lantique had the winning of the race. I was disappointed maybe a little bit with his finishing effort. He's a horse, obviously, he's been beaten twice. He was beaten twice in bumpers. He's potentially something that travels well, but doesn't find as much off the bridle as you would expect him to. And for me, that was over 2 mile 4. He's stepping up an extra furlong in trip. I'd be concerned about him coming up the hill, to be honest. Yes, the winner there is one of the big fancies for the Albert Bartlett novice hurdle on Friday. We're going to have a look at Predator's Gold now in just a second, who the handicappers actually have 2 pounds above Elet Lantique. Martin, give us your thoughts on Predator's Gold, and maybe bracket Elet Lantique in there as well. They both got grade 1 form, both 2nd and grade 1s last time. Is one maybe slightly ahead of the other as the assessors? Well, I do like Predator's Gold. I think he's a horse with a lot of ability, like how he travels through his races, and he probably travelled a bit too keenly last time over the 2.6. Here it is. We can see that now, and he really lobbed around there, but his finishing effort wasn't really quite in line with everything, and coming back a furlong and a half in distance is going to help this horse. I think there's a bit of pace on. I'd imagine Elet Lantique will be ridden forward. Mercury might be ridden forward as well, so there could just be a little bit more pace over the shorter trip in a bigger field than last time, and I suspect that will help Predator's Gold as well. So he's been beaten on his last two runs, but he's still got a progressive profile, and the faster they go, I think it'll help him. I think the rain has probably helped his chance as well. Lisa, is he on your shortlist maybe to finish 2nd at Ballyburn? Yeah, he possibly is, Gary. For me, look, he's, as Martin alluded to, he's an improving, progressive sort, and albeit he's been runner-up in 2 grade 1s, he comes here with a rock-solid chance, off an official rating of 150. I think he has to have every chance, but I don't think he's going to overturn the favourite. What about Handstands? Unbeaten horse trained by Ben Pauling, and we spoke yesterday. Ben's horse has been in terrific form in the run-up to Cheltenham this year, and
The horse ran a smashing race in the Ultimate yesterday, Martin, as well. Twig was up there all the way. Handstands won the Sydney Banks Novice Hurdle at Huntingdon last time, beating a previous Grade 1er in Django Bay. Where does he fit into the scheme?
Yeah, look, he's a good, solid horse, very likeable. It's the right trip. It's definitely the right race for him. But ultimately, you can't help but look and think, what are the British novice hurdlers worth in relation to the Irish ones? And you know, you look at yesterday's Supreme, completely dominated again by the Irish horses. So these strands of British form, I think it's hard to take them seriously up against a Ballyburn and Il Atlantique, if I'm being honest. So he's done nothing wrong. This was a good, tough, gutsy performance actually from him at Huntingdon. He had to dig pretty deep, and I actually like the way when Harry Cobden pulled his stick through there on the run-in, he sort of went again, didn't he, having looked briefly vulnerable. But he can run his race, but I think running his race will probably only get 4th or 5th maybe even in this field.
Nicky Henderson is still going to have 3 runners as things stand on today's card, and he's represented here by Jinko Blue, who won a handicap last time out at Sandown in ground that was described as good to soft. I mean, it's guesswork on our part, Lisa. Do you think the way things are shaping up with the Henderson horses, the decision maybe has been left with the owners whether they want to run or not today?
Yeah, potentially, Gary. Look, obviously he's decided to let a few take their chance, and he'll be hoping that they can really show themselves in good form. But it's very questionable considering the way the rest of the runners have shaped up in yesterday even. But this guy, obviously, Jinko Blue, he's an official rating of 140. This was him winning a handicap in Sandown in February. He off a mark of 124. He went up £16 in the ratings for that, but it was an impressive, visually it was quite impressive what he'd done. And look, he's obviously stepping into Grade 1 company for the first time. As Martin said, I think with some of the English form, they've plenty to prove.
Yeah, hardly a betting proposition, Martin, with the way the things are shaping up with the Henderson horses. Is he one you like, though, going forward?
I do like it. I like him as a horse. Yeah, I think he's a good prospect, and he'll be a chaser as well. I think he really attacks his hurdles, and I think he'll be better when he goes chasing next year. I was actually on track at Sandown that day, did nothing wrong. The form's worked out pretty well in the context of British handicaps, but that's where that is at, and you know, he's got £10 even to find with a Predator's Gold, and I think with justification, add in the fact that the Henderson horses have been underperforming, there are lots of question marks there, I think.
So I think we're all with Ballyburn. Martin, you do like Predator's Gold, I think, to finish second.
Yeah, I think he could finish second, particularly if the pace is a strong one and he's just given a waiting ride. I could see him coming through and finishing off his race well and picking up some pieces, but I wouldn't imagine he'll be laying a glove on Ballyburn.
So there you have it. That's our look at today's opener, the Gallagher Novices Hurdle, which is now due off at the revised time of 1:45. Let's rejoin Anthony.
We managed to tear Ruby Walsh away from the Guinness Village yesterday. You enjoyed your time there with Tom Bull, didn't you?
I did, yeah. If I had my way, I'd be renamed something else. But anyway, yeah, I'm sure Tom and Adele got a taste for Guinness, and yeah, hopefully they managed to get out of there at some stage.
Thankfully, you have a taste for winners, both riding them and as well being part of a stable that it's just all encompassing, all dominant at this stage.
Yeah, it's flying. A great day yesterday. 3 winners, you know. Couple of reversals, but all in all, you'd be delighted with how the day went. Big guns performed. Stateman was just Stateman, isn't he? He just doesn't blow you away. He just keeps on winning. Last year was very good, and obviously Gaelic Warrior. Fair play to Willie. I doubted him. I didn't think going left-handed after his run in Leopardstown that he could get him back as well as he did. But again, he just does things other people don't do.
On Stateman, the way the race panned out, by and large, you champion hurdles, they're usually not run at frenetic paces. But at the same time, I get the feeling if it was run at a frenetic pace, he probably would have won pretty much as he did. That's just him.
Yeah, but that was also Paul. And look, you're riding for Willie, you have a free hand. You make the decisions regards riding them. He makes the decisions as regards where they're going to run. And yeah, everyone does their own job. And Paul had the confidence to ride him the way he saw best. And I know he did. He believed he was riding the fastest horse in the race. So the slower they went, the more it was suiting him. And that's the way he rode him. And he had the confidence to keep riding him that way.
If you were in charge of race planning, where would you like to see him next?
Oh, he'll go to Punchestown. That's where Stateman will go next. So will Lassie Mountain. You know, that's part of the Stateman's season. The market plots itself out, or the designs itself. Morgiana, Matheson, Dublin Racing Festival, Cheltenham and Punchestown. 5 races, 5 runs, and hopefully that's where he gets it.
What about Gaelic Warrior? Where would you like to see him?
I'd imagine he'll go back to Punchestown as well. Yeah, but I'd imagine he'll go back to Punchestown. Fairyhouse will probably come too soon. Aintree close to Punchestown, so I imagine he'll go to Punchestown. You know, and it's 2 miles or 3 miles to Punchestown, but I'd imagine he'll stay at 2 miles.
I love those versatile horses. Chuck them in. It's almost a slightly old-fashioned campaign. You can chuck a lot at him, and by and large, it'll stick.
Yeah, but in fairness, though, David Casey has been adamant all year that he should be running at 2 miles, and Willie thought the same. But look, he was in the middle distance and he was winning, and obviously when he got beaten, then you have to change tack. And you know, because he was at 3 mile, we had 1 winner. Everyone assumed that'd be up, but Willie and David decided he should come back down and trip, and getting the lead was key for him yesterday, Anthony. He was a much different horse to watch in a race when he was behind the horse than he is when he's in front.
You got so many good chances today. I'd be almost surprised if Willie didn't get his 100th winner at Cheltenham off the back of it. 3 shorties, Sam Majestic in the Coral Cup, 9 of them in the bumper.
Yeah.
There's a lot to look forward to.
A lot to look forward to. He's on 96, is he?
97.
97. So, El Fabiolo could be, yeah. Ballyburn, look, his form got franked yesterday. So did Factify's form get franked. And that's the moving parts of a Cheltenham Festival. We know they'll handle the ground. Trip is the unknown for Factify. Ballyburn, it's relaxing enough, but you know, they look to be in great form. And El Fabiolo, unfortunately, without John Bon, I think he's a huge loss to the race. Edward Stone bowling away, he will suit El Fabiolo, and he looks really hard. The 3 of them look really hard to oppose. Sam Majestic in the Coral Cup, thought he looked really well this morning. Looking at him, Mark Walsh was riding him out. I thought he looked a picture. Sam Roy in the Grand Annual could run well too if he gets into a rhythm jump, and he's a bit hit and miss, but he's running last year's Arkle. Looks a solid enough effort. And the bumper, 9 of them. And then Benvie Patrick, he would have had to have the choice, pick 1 of 9. Then it was Paul's choice. It wasn't much easier for him either. But I'd be going for the stairs. I think Jodie has a chance on the mare, Flora Fazil. I think she's a very good mare. I think Brian Hayes is a squeak too on Argento Boy. I think he stays well as well.
You rode your first winner at Cheltenham in the bumper, didn't you? Alexander Banquet, 98?
98, Alexander Banquet. Florida Burr was 97, Winner of Which, 96th. Tourist Attraction with his first winner in 93, yeah. I remember come to ride Alexander Banquet in 98. I think Willie had 7 runners at the meeting, maybe 8. Myself and David Casey were flown to Stansted on the Sunday night, and Jackie Mullins' father collected us and drove us from Stansted to Cheltenham, so we'd be here right out in the Monday morning. So
7, maybe 8 runners at the meeting, and now 9 in the bumper.
Yeah, that's how it's grown, how he's built it, and it was a long time ago, but it's been, look, I'm a part of the team, and it's been a privilege to be there and to watch it grow to become what it is. And some people don't like it, but I think it's incredible.
What's your favourite part of this week? Is it just purely the championship races, or is it maybe the sign of a young horse coming through and you're immediately talking about the festival next year?
That's it. It's what happened yesterday. You're looking at Slade Steele thinking, ooh, what could he end up being? You're looking at Gaelic Warrior thinking, wow, could he be a champion chase horse? Lost him out, will she step up and take on the champion hurdlers? That's what this place does. It brings you, it shows you the champions, and it gives you a taster of what's to come.
So go on, banker of the day. Price dependent, whatever. Who is your best chance of a winner on the day?
Oh, the horse in the first. His form is rock solid. Yep. He's just a better horse than the other novice hurdlers. But that's too short for most people. I'm going to stick with Argento Boy, you train the bumper.
Like it.
He's a relative to Briar Hill. Briar won at Briar Hill here. He was 25 to 1. No one wanted to back him. You know what I mean? He was friendless. He's not as flashy. Argento Boy is the same pedigree, similar pedigree. Yeah, you got to stick with him.
You got Niall Hannity tomorrow, I think. Do you reckon he'll get you in the bar for your piece?
He'll get me in the bar. Probably won't get away as light as I got away with Junior, Anthony.
No, just a bench here and masking a few bins. Great to talk with you, Ruby. Thanks for having me.
That's all. Thank you.
From one man with a Cheltenham pedigree, Ruby Walsh, to another who's becoming a very good young trainer. He's got a 24% strike rate this season, and he has some very interesting Cheltenham memories. Here's Harry Derham.
Salubris was a great day. I mean, we had a lot of sadness in Ditchett at the time because Clifford Baker's son had passed away a couple of weeks before, and we'd had a slow festival. Silvernacker Conti fell 3 out in the Gold Cup and was travelling well, and Like we fancied Salubrious, but it had rained a lot, and Paul sort of said to me in the end, I nearly didn't run him. I think the ground is probably gone, which we all did. But he said just drop him in, and if he doesn't like it, look after him. We'll go to Aintree. But it's probably good instructions to have in the boys' race because they went quick. I didn't really think I was in the race for a mile and a half. Just hunted round, and just one of those races that went really smooth. As a jockey, you want to try and have a win at the Cheltenham Festival, and it was a cool moment.
Yeah, and I remember Paul Nicholls at the time was very complimentary about the ride, so it was very patient. I think you went quite wide as well. He was pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, I was just winning, so it made it a bit easier. I remember coming back into the weighing room thinking I was sort of quite clever, and Ruby said to me, "Oh, you got there way too soon." So no, it was cool. It was a good day. It was one of those, it was one of those things that he was always a little bit free in his races, and because they went fast, just dropped him in. He settled. It just worked out. When you win, it normally looks a good ride, but he was probably the best horse on the day. The season before I had my first rise at the festival, I finished second, beaten half length by McCoy. So sort of gutted with that, and then the year Salubrious won. 2 days before that, I finished second on Quai de Burley in the Fred Winter, and I thought, I've had a bit of luck here. I wonder whether that's gone, 2 seconds, and whether I use my luck up. But it was great to have a winner there, and I'm glad I've done it.
And I've always wondered in the Martin Pipe race, it being for conditional jockeys, does it give you a bit of bragging rights in the weighing room between your peers? You can't go win the race that's specifically for you guys.
I don't think so. It just makes for quite a hectic start. I rode in the race a few times and dropped in most of the time because you knew they were going to go quite quick. No, the thing about being a jockey is you're quickly back down to earth, so you never got too far ahead of yourself.
And from being a jockey, you obviously became assistant trainer to Paul and enjoyed a fair bit of success at Cheltenham as well.
Yeah, Frodon would have been, I would say, the highlight. Such a special horse. The reception him and B got that day when they won the Ryanair was, I'll never forget that. I sort of ran up the home straight to give B a high five and give Frodon a hug, and I followed them back down, and just the reception they got was amazing. And very, very brave performance from Frodon as well, like typically brave from him. But some real good days. But I'd say, like, if you could have had one of them back, it would have been Frodon winning the Ryanair. That I'll never ever forget that. To me, National Hunt racing is a lovely thing because fans can love the horses because they've been around for a long time, and even then, Frodon I think as an 8-year-old felt like he'd been around forever, and National Hunt fans appreciated what him and B did that day.
Politolog, obviously a Champion Chase winner. At the time, he wouldn't have been the most fancied for the contest, but I suppose that's what you and Paul did so well, and Paul's always done that very well, is that a horse you might not necessarily be thought by the public to have a chance of winning a race like that does so because he does everything absolutely bang on in the race and is race fit to the number.
Yeah, and don't forget his run before that was unplaced in a Tingle Creek, and he just said, right, what we're doing now isn't working, and he changed things around. Hannah Roach was riding him, and he just completely changed his routine. Started using the flat gallop way more, trotting up over the hill instead of cantering, and he just said, right, I'm going to have him absolutely spot on for one day, and he did. And that is an amazing skill, to be able to get a horse who looks exposed to be able to run to a higher level than ever before. And obviously Harry Cobden was stable jockey at the time, but Harry Skelton rode him, and rode him fantastically. They got on really well. And Politolog, just another wonderfully honest horse. He gave his all, jumped very well that day, and just kept galloping really well.
Yeah, he certainly did. And another Champion Chase winner at the Yard was Dodging Bullets, and I know that you used to ride him out a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, that's a horse I feel like I was actually quite involved in. Used to ride him, as you say, used to ride him most days. He's a very odd horse. I think it was probably, in the time I was there, I think it was as good a training performance as I've seen from Paul, because Dodging Bullets was a pretty good graded horse, grade 2 horse, but that season he won 3 grade 1 chases, and he'd run okay in a Triumph, very ordinary in a Supreme, okay in an Arkle, and we always felt that by the time we'd got him to Cheltenham he was slightly over the boil. But he really was on song that Champion Chase day, and I felt part of that success because he was quite an odd horse. He took a little bit of knowing. Well, it took us 3 years to get him to Cheltenham in the best form we could, and he performed amazingly well that day, and he was never as good after. He absolutely emptied the tank that day. You know, really gave everything, and it was just that was a really, really special day. You know, some great owners. I would say that was one of my best days in racing for sure. It was real special.
Harry Derham telling us about some of his Cheltenham memories, of course, when he was working for Paul Nicholls and doing so well in his own right as a young trainer. Now, you may well have been watching us on Freeview. Thank you for your company. We're going to have to say goodbye to you now. But if you do want more, and I can promise there is lots more, then why don't you become a Racing TV member? Just go to racingtv.com/benefits and join us for the rest of the Cheltenham coverage and more thereafter. But thanks for your company thus far.
Mark your car.